8 years. Where does the time go? I mean, really, this album is 8 years old already? Are you kidding me? It doesn't even feel like it's been that long. And I think the reason it hasn't felt that long is because since this record, Paramore's only released one other record, but this album means a lot to me in a way, as around this time, April 5th of 2013, I would have been finishing off my freshman year of high school. Things weren't really great. I mean, my freshman year was going fine, but again, when you look like me, you know, you get bullied a lot and you don't necessarily have a lot of friends in the school, and when I had classes, it was literally like everybody I hated. That's just how it was. Like everybody, not everybody, but 95% of the people I had classes with, I just didn't get along with. And, you know, there was just something I needed to get me through. And I remember my one friend in school was a big fan of this band. At the time, I'd only known Paramore as like the Misery Business band, the Decode band, you know, for those songs in particular. I wasn't necessarily a humongous fan, but I was, you know, about to be. And then I remember hearing their song Monster from Transformers Dark of the Moon, really attaching me even more, wondering when they were going to release a new project. And then, of course, in 2013, here they come with the self-titled record, basically showing themselves off as a completely new band, but still the same, as the two founding members, Josh and Zach Farrell, left, leaving just Haley Williams, Taylor York, and Jeremy Davis at this point in time. The record is known to be a departure from the pop-punk sound that we all grew to love from them, as they take on more of like a pop rock type sound. It's a mixture of a lot of things, but for the most part it's pop rock with like those catchy little indie interludes that go on throughout the whole entire thing. And to date, Paramore's never made an album like this again. 17 tracks, over an hour long, and it just felt so perfect. A lot of the times with records like these, it's very hard to get through them without being so 50-50. But this record, to me, was so easy to get through despite the long track listing and long runtime. Why? Well, because it was happy and upbeat, and it really made me widen my horizons when it came to music. This was like the year when I really started exploring a lot more, because 2013 was a great year for music, in my eyes, at least for me. You know, you had the return of Paramore, Panic at the Disco, and Fall Out Boy, while also having the return of Daft Punk with Random Access Memories, and just a lot more that if I were to name all of them, we would be here all day. But yes, 2013 to me has to be like my number one year during my 22, almost 23 years of life alive music-wise, just because there was so much that came out that year that I was just so intrigued with and fell in love with, and my love for music grew outside of just rock music. It was other things, more pop and rap I started getting into, thanks to bands like Churches with the whole synth pop thing, and finding Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid Mad City a year later really made me go, oh, maybe this whole new rap thing isn't that bad when you actually search for something. And yeah, I mean, this album is also one of the albums that to this day, even 8 years after its release, I still play during rough times, especially a lot lately, because, well, the last year and a half have just been complete and utter shit for everybody. You know, between coronavirus, I've had personal issues like losing another one of my childhood dogs and losing my grandmother within a 3-month span. It was just very tough, and when you hear these songs, they really just cheer you up a bit and just make you go, hey, it's worth it. Now, they took a U-turn when After Laughter came out, but this record was also made at a rough time in the band's life, too, obviously. Didn't know if the band was going to break up. It was just kind of like a, what's going to happen now that 2 of the founding members left, and they decided to be all upbeat and happy. We moved to LA, so let's just be peppy and cheery. Let's be motivational and make this album just stand out for everybody, and it did. And it's one of the just one of the best albums when it comes to, I think, deep cuts as well. Like, don't get me wrong, the singles are great, and if it wasn't for Ain't It Fun, Paramore would never have a Grammy win ever. They would be stuck in that category with Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco, is just being big bands but not having a Grammy win. And that's just one thing you gotta think. But when you look at the opener, like Fast in My Car and like Part 2, Last Hope, Ankle Biters, and Be Alone, it's so much to take in, and it's all just, like, there's not a point in time in the album where you're kind of taken out. Maybe Hate to See Your Heart Break, but in the end, that's a nice little track that, does its job from what it needs to do. I've mentioned it as probably my least favorite Paramore song of all time, at least when it comes to, bottom 5, but it's still a passable song nonetheless. And with an album this long, very rarely do you just see the whole entire track listing just blow you away like it did, and it's their only album to hit number 1 on the Billboard, and for good reason. For really, really good reason. I mean, people had waited 4 years since their, last album, which ended up going number 2 on the Billboard, so obviously with it being as highly anticipated as it was, it reaching number 1 really wasn't a surprise, and to this day, I think it's aged pretty well. Like I said, Paramore would change with the whole like synth pop indie rock thing for the next release, but I feel like if Paramore were to go back to doing this sound in particular, I think it would be great. Not that I didn't like After Laughter, I loved After Laughter, but this just screamed Paramore better than maybe their emo days did, which, don't get me wrong, again, it feels good to be nostalgic about your emo days, but when you grow up, it's not necessarily you grow out of that, but you want to do other different things, and that's just what Haley, Taylor, and at the time Jeremy did at this point. And again, when an album has aged this well that 8 years later, you can still say it does a lot for you and does a lot for other people, then you've made a great album. And if it wasn't for this album, my music taste would just be rock or nothing, and I wouldn't give anything else in the world a chance. But because of this record, it made me change my mind to go, the only band out there isn't just Kiss. There's other bands you can listen to. There's other genres you can listen to. As long as you search, there's something good. So without this record, this channel probably wouldn't even exist, and that's what makes it so special to me. But yeah, that's basically it. You guys can tell me in the comments below, what is your take on this record even 8 years later? Does it still hit from the first day it came out in 2013? Has it, grown on you? Have you fallen out of love with it just a little bit? Or does this record help you like it helped me in some ways? I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear your take on things. But until then, continue staying safe out there and wearing your mask, and I will catch you all in the next one.